So imagine you are sitting at a beautifully set table at this really fancy dinner party.
Okay, setting the scene. I like it.
Right. And the food has just arrived. It smells amazing. And then the person sitting directly next to you pulls out a giant, incredibly pungent cigar and a lighter.
Oh no, that is like the ultimate faux pas.
It really is. And they look at you and ask, do you mind? Now, if you look them in the eye and say, I want you to stop, or, I don't know, do not smoke that, you instantly sound like a dictator.
Yeah, you totally kill the vibe of the entire room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you use one tiny, weird, almost time-traveling grammar trick, you can get exactly what you want, shut the cigar down, and, still sound incredibly polite and sophisticated.
And that's because it is entirely about the hidden mechanics of social interaction. I mean, we often think of grammar as just the rigid engineering of a language.
Like the math that holds a sentence together.
Right, exactly. But conversational English is actually much more like diplomacy. The words we choose totally dictate the power dynamics of every interaction we have.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are stepping out of the textbook and into the real world today.
Yes, we are.
Our mission for you today is to build a beginner's guide to mastering some of the most subtle but incredibly powerful structures in the English language. So we're talking about the words as if, the word as on its own, and the intricate hierarchy of how to properly express your preferences.
So you never sound like that dinner party dictator.
Exactly. We want to avoid that at all costs.
These might seem like tiny, almost invisible vocabulary words on a page, but they are basically the lenses through which we navigate reality.
You really are.
They dictate how we interpret what we see, how we explain the timing of events happening around us, and ultimately how we impose our desires onto the world without causing friction.
Right. So let's jump right into that first lens, which is interpreting the world. Because we constantly have to describe things we don't fully understand or, can't perfectly verify.
Right. We're guessing a lot of the time.
Exactly. Like, if I'm walking down the street and I see a dilapidated building leaning dangerously to one side, I'm not a structural engineer.
I would hope not, yeah.
Right. I can't state as a hard fact that it's going to collapse. So I use as if. I look at it and say, that house looks as if it's going to fall down.
Which is a brilliant linguistic safety net. As if allows you to describe an impression without committing to it as a concrete reality.
You're just putting a filter on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are explicitly comparing reality with a possibility. You're observing how something looks or sounds, feels, smells, or seems.
Okay, so give us an example of that in action.
Well, if you walk into an empty room and say, it smells as though someone has been smoking in here, you haven't actually seen a cigarette.
Right.
You haven't caught anyone in the act. You are just letting the sensory clue paint a picture of a hypothetical reality.
And just to clear, functionally, as though and as if are completely interchangeable, right?
Oh, 100%. They do the exact same job of putting that interpretive filter over your observation.
Okay, perfect. But I do want to bring up something that always sparks a debate with this. If you listen to how native speakers actually text or, chat at a coffee shop, you don't hear as if all that much.
No, you really don't.
You hear the word like.
Yes. The great like debate. Linguists and grammar purists have argued about this for decades.
I bet they have.
In formal writing, you will always, always be encouraged to use as if. But in casual, everyday speech, people will very frequently swap it out.
It's just faster, I guess.
Yeah, basically. Instead of saying, it looks as if Sandra isn't coming to the party, a native speaker will almost certainly just say, it looks like Sandra isn't coming.
Right, and functionally it's doing the exact same heavy lifting. It's comparing the reality, which is Sandra's current absence, to the impression that she's just bailing on the party altogether.
Yeah.
But here is where this structure gets wonderfully strange to me. We don't just use as if for physical things, like falling houses or smelling smoke.
And you don't.
We use it to describe human behavior, specifically to highlight when someone is acting in a way that is totally disconnected from reality.
And this is where we see a fascinating shift in the verb tense, which is so cool.
Oh, yeah. Break that down for us.
So when we use as if to describe hypothetical or unreal behavior, we often push the verb into the past tense, even if we are standing there watching the situation happen right now, in the present.
Wait, so paint that picture for us. How does that actually sound in action?
Okay, let's say you look out your window right now and you see a man jogging down the sidewalk.
Good.
But he isn't just jogging, he is sprinting, looking over his shoulder with a face full of absolute terror.
Yikes.
Right. You wouldn't just say he is running fast. You would say he is running as if he were running for his life.
Oh, yeah.
Or imagine you pitch a brand new marketing idea at a staff meeting and your colleagues just stare at you in completely stunned silence.
The worst feeling.
The absolute worst. You'd describe it later by saying, they looked at me as if I was mad?
I love that use of the past tense there, like was mad or were running,
Yeah.
because it acts as a massive flashing neon sign to the listener.
Yes. It screams, hey, this is not reality.
Right. They reacted to my idea like it was crazy, but I am clarifying that I am not actually mad. It perfectly captures that filter of unreality. It's almost theatrical.
It is entirely theatrical. It highlights the vast gap between the literal facts of the situation and the dramatic performance someone is putting on, whether they mean to or not.
My absolute favorite application of this is when someone makes a catastrophic, embarrassing mistake in public.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Right. Everyone sees it happen. But the person just stands up, straightens their jacket, and keeps talking. We describe that by saying they carried on as if nothing had happened.
Yes. It's such a brilliant way to capture the sheer absurdity of their denial.
It really is.
It perfectly illustrates how, as if, builds a bridge between what is demonstrably true and the alternate reality someone is trying to project.
Okay, so as if and casual like are tools for dodging reality and, playing with impressions.
Right.
But we can't live in hypothetical land forever. Eventually, we have to deal with hard, undeniable facts. And if we drop the if, we're left with just the word as.
The double agent.
Exactly. As is basically a double agent in the English language. It operates under two completely different sets of rules. It handles reason and it handles time.
Let's tackle reason first, because it's definitely the more straightforward of the two.
Okay, sounds good.
When we use as to explain the reason for something, it is operating as an exact synonym for the word because.
So instead of saying because it was a public holiday, all the shops were shut, I could just swap it out and say as it was a public holiday, all the shops were shut.
Exactly. The meaning doesn't shift even a millimeter.
Which begs the question, honestly, why bother using as? Why not just stick with because every single time?
It mostly comes down to flow and register. Swapping because for as subtly elevates the sentence.
Okay, so it sounds fancier.
A bit, yeah. It sounds a bit more formal, a bit more polished, and it often flows more rhythmically in spoken English. Like, as they live near us, we see them quite often feel slightly smoother than hitting the hard B sound of because.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But then we flip the coin and we find as being used for time. And suddenly the rules get incredibly strict.
Very strict.
When we use as to describe time, it strictly demands simultaneous action. We are talking about two things happening in the exact same millisecond.
Simultaneity is the absolute core of the word in this context. Think of the sentence, I watched her as she opened the letter.
Okay.
The act of watching and the act of opening are inextricably linked in time. They begin and end together.
Right.
Or consider a more physical example. Jill slipped as she was getting off the bus. The slipping didn't happen before, it didn't happen after.
The slipping and the stepping down are tangled together in one moment.
Exact.
Now, this is a huge trap for learners, right? Because it drastically contrasts with the word when.
Oh, yes. It's a very common mistake.
Because when is strictly for sequential actions. One event kicking off after another one finishes.
Think about your evening routine.
Right, you say, when I got home, I took a bath. You arrive, you walk inside, then you run the water.
Sequential.
But if you mess up and say, as I got home, I took a bath, you are painting a very weird, surreal picture. You're implying that you were somehow bathing on the front porch while simultaneously turning the key in the lock.
That visual perfectly explains why precision matters. It's such a funny image.
It is.
And just to add one more layer to this temporal puzzle, we have to look at the word while.
Oh, right. While.
While is reserved for background actions, usually setting a scene with a continuous verb. You would say, the doorbell rang while we were asleep. The sleeping is the long, ongoing background state.
And the ringing is the sudden interruption.
Percent.
And there is a massive, unforgiving rule here regarding age, isn't there?
Oh, huge, yes.
You can never, ever use as to describe how old someone was when an event happened. You cannot say Angela got married as she was 23.
No, never. Age is a fixed, prolonged state, not a simultaneous action.
Right. It always has to be Angela got married when she was 23.
That is one of the most common pitfalls, and it instantly flags a speaker as non-native. It just sounds entirely wrong to a native ear.
I want to push back on this double agent concept, though.
Okay, go for it.
If as can mean because, and it can also mean at the exact same time, I feel like we're setting up a scenario for massive confusion.
I can see why you'd think that.
Right. Listen to this sentence. As they walked along the street, they looked in shop windows. Am I saying they looked in the windows because they were walking? Or am I saying they looked at the exact same time they were walking? How does a listener's brain actually untangle that?
That is the perfect question to ask, because it highlights how the human brain acts as an incredibly fast prediction machine during conversation.
Okay, how so?
The ambiguity is resolved by an unconscious causality check. When a native speaker hears, as they walk, they looked, their brain scans the two verbs. Does the physical act of walking force someone to look in a window?
No. They're totally independent actions.
Right. Therefore, the brain automatically defaults to interpreting as a marker of simultaneous time.
Oh, that makes total sense. We were basically scanning for logic.
Exactly.
If I say, as the ice melted, the water level rose, the melting directly causes the rising. My brain spots the cause and effect relationship instantly, so it interprets as to mean because.
Yes, exactly.
We aren't just relying on vague common sense. We are relying on the structural logic of the universe to decode the grammar.
Precisely. Mastering how to construct sentences where the context naturally and effortlessly resolves that ambiguity is a major milestone in achieving fluency. It shows you really trust the listener.
All right, let's take stock for a second.
Let's do it.
We've figured out how to dodge reality and guess at the world using as if. We've figured out how to lock down hard facts, timing, and reasoning using as.
We have.
But right now, we are just passive observers. We're just sitting on a park bench watching time and events happen around us. It's time to take control.
I love taking control.
Let's pivot to how we actively shape reality by expressing our preferences.
This is a fundamental psychological shift in language. We are contrasting the deeply passive nature of as if with the highly active, assertive nature of stating a preference.
Right. As if means you are reacting to an external situation. Stating a preference means you are projecting your internal desires outward.
Exactly.
If using as if means you're sitting in the audience watching the movie of your life, expressing preferences, stepping into the director's chair, you're no longer sitting back and murmuring, "It looks as if they are pouring me tea." You stand up and say, "I prefer coffee." You take agency.
And stepping into the director's chair requires specific tools. English offers a highly nuanced hierarchy of formulas for this role.
A hierarchy. Okay.
Yeah, it all depends on the scope of your desire. Are you establishing a broad, general lifestyle rule, or are you making a highly specific, right now, in the moment demand?
Let's start broad. When we are just talking about our general personality traits, the things we like in our everyday life, we use the base word prefer.
Right.
And what's great here is that English gives you some breathing room. Prefer to do and prefer doing are virtually identical in everyday use.
Pretty much, yeah.
I can tell you, I prefer to live in the city, or I can say, I prefer living in the city. You're going to understand my lifestyle exactly the same way.
The complexity really only arises when you start directly comparing two options. This is all about conversational symmetry. Your phrasing needs to stay balanced.
Okay, let's say we're planning a trip, and we were talking about our general travel habits. If I am just comparing two basic nouns like two objects, I bridge them with the word to. I prefer tea to coffee.
Easy. Simple enough.
If I am talking about the continuous actions of travel, using ik-ing words, I keep that symmetry and still use to. I prefer driving to traveling by train.
Still symmetrical.
But if I want to use base verbs, to drive and to travel,
yeah.
that little word to in the middle isn't strong enough to hold the sentence together anymore.
Exactly. The structure would completely collapse. You can't say, I prefer to drive to travel. It sounds completely absurd.
It really does. So what do we do?
To maintain the balance when using base verbs, you have to expand the bridge. You say, I prefer to drive rather than travel by train. It keeps the grammar symmetrical and the meaning crystal clear.
Okay, so those are the rules for establishing my grand, overarching life philosophy of travel.
Right.
But what if we aren't philosophizing? What if we are standing in the train station right now, you hold up two tickets and say, shall we take the train? I am making a specific, immediate choice.
For an immediate choice, the general prefer is no longer appropriate. You must shift to would prefer. And the critical rule here is that would prefer absolutely demands the to-do structure. It completely rejects ing verbs. You would say, I prefer to go by car.
I would never say I'd prefer going by car in that specific moment.
No, never.
But let's be honest about how humans actually speak here.
Yeah.
If we are rushing through a busy station, I'm probably not going to enunciate, I would prefer to go by car. It sounds a bit stilted.
It does.
I'm going to use the ultimate spoken shortcut.
Yes, you're going to use would rather. Would rather
Yeah.
is functionally identical to would prefer to do, but it is vastly more common in spoken dialogue.
Definitely.
The only structural difference is that would rather drops the word to completely. You use the raw infinitive verb.
So I'd prefer to go trims down to just I'd rather go. Not I'd rather to go.
Yeah.
Just the raw action.
Exactly.
I'd rather drive. And if I'm exhausted and want to reject an idea, I just throw a not in there. I'd rather not go out tonight. It is so incredibly efficient.
Super efficient.
But I have to ask you about the psychology behind this. Why do we have these layers? Is would rather just a result of verbal laziness? Dropping syllables to speak faster.
It is the exact opposite of laziness, actually. It's social hyper-awareness.
Real?
Having these subtle gradations would rather gives a speaker the ability to navigate social friction with immense grace. If you just say, I won, it basically functions as a demand. It traps the other person.
Oh, I see.
But I'd rather functions as an invitation to negotiate. It expresses your clear desire while leaving social breathing room for the other person to respond. It softens the edges of our demands.
I want is a demand, I'd rather is a negotiation. That is a brilliant way to frame it.
It changes everything.
It does. And it sets us up perfectly to solve the dinner party problem we talked about at the very beginning of the show.
The cigar guy.
The cigar guy. We've talked about observing the world, and we've talked about expressing our own personal choices. Now we reach the absolute peak of conversational grammar. Using your preferences to control someone else's behavior without them resenting you. The Jedi mind trick.
I love calling it the Jedi mind trick. So the structure is, I'd rather you did. We use, I'd rather you did something when we need to dictate another person's actions. But we need to do it in a way that remains entirely polite and socially acceptable.
Right.
It is the ultimate tool for setting firm boundaries with a smile.
Let's go back to that fancy dinner table. The guy next to you pulls out the cigar and asks, do you mind if I smoke? You don't slap it out of his hand. You don't scream no.
That'd be bad.
You just calmly say, I'd rather you didn't. It shuts the action down completely, but it maintains the dignity of the dinner party.
It's beautiful.
It is. But we have to look under the hood at the bizarre time-traveling glitch happening in this sentence.
A glitch.
Yes. I'd rather you didn't. Or I'd rather you came with us tomorrow. We are actively using past tense verbs. Didn't, came, was to control something happening in the present or the future. Why is my brain forced to use the past tense came when I'm talking about tomorrow?
Because in English, verb tenses do a lot more than just track time on a clock. Pushing a verb into the past tense is actually the primary way we create psychological distance.
Psychological distance. Break that down for us. Why do we need distance from each other?
Well, think about the physical space in a conversation. When you use the present tense, I want you to come with us, or don't smoke, it is immediate. It is direct.
It's right there.
Exactly. It is standing right in the other person's face, linguistically speaking. It forces a confrontation. By taking the verb and shoving it back into the past tense, I'd rather you came, you are artificially creating a buffer zone.
You are stepping back. You're taking the immediate threat out of the command and moving it into a slightly hypothetical, softer space.
Precisely. You are transforming a hard command into a polite preference by giving the other person psychological breathing room. You are letting them save face.
Wow.
It is an incredibly advanced concept to internalize, but mastering it is a total game changer. It is the hallmark of true fluency.
So if my friend asks, shall I tell them the secret? I don't say don't tell them. I say, I'd rather they didn't know.
Right.
Or if I'm exhausted after work, I don't demand you cook dinner tonight. I say, I'd rather you cook dinner tonight.
Yeah.
I'm getting exactly what I want, but I am wrapping the demand in this velvet glove of past tense distance.
It allows you to be the director of the scene, managing the actors around you without ever acting like a tyrant.
That completely changes how I view these small grammatical rules.
It's deep, isn't it?
Let's take a breath and look at the massive journey we've just been on today. We started by figuring out how to interpret the unpredictable world around us using the safety net of as if and the casual filter of like.
We did.
We learned how to lock down reality, decoding time and reason with the double agent word as. And finally, we took absolute control of our reality. We stepped into the director's chair, navigating our personal choices with would rather,
Mm-hmm.
and deploying that brilliant time-bending I'd rather you did trick to politely manage the people around us.
It's really remarkable how much power is packed into these tiny everyday words.
It really is.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building entirely on this concept of psychological distance we just unpacked.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we use the past tense in I'd rather you did, specifically to soften a command and fake sense of distance, think about how often the English language relies on fakeness or unreality just to maintain social harmony.
Oh, wow, I see what you mean. We use grammar to avoid the harsh truth.
Exactly. The next time you're having a conversation, or even just eavesdropping on one at a coffee shop, pay close attention to the tenses people choose. Ask yourself, is the speaker actually describing cold, hard reality? Or are they using grammar to politely tiptoe around a demand or soften a blow or fake a scenario to keep everyone happy? The tiny words we choose reveal just as much about our desperate need for social harmony as they do about the actual facts of our lives.
Back to the very beginning, language really isn't just engineering and math, it's profoundly human. It's carrying the weight of all our social anxieties and relationships in every single sentence.
Hot on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these subtle structures, step into the director's chair, and try using that velvet glove of past tense distance in your next conversation. You've got this.